Hi, I'm Keon Saab, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where a band of dreamers took a strip of beach and turned it into a proving ground. The Great American Race, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Once you arrive, you'll never look back. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our Tuscaloosa studios as we look forward to what's coming up on Saturday between Alabama and Missouri, while taking a look back to last Saturday's game in Knoxville as well. We'll start our show by taking a look at our headlines, plus what's coming up, thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us the smart board to go through everything in a very interactive way during our headlines. We'll start by having a conversation with Walt Brock. He is the director of creative and a lot of production content for Alabama football, and he is also kind of the brains behind the New Wave podcast with Jalen Bachway and Ryan Williams. We'll get thoughts on that from Walt Brock to begin our show. Then we'll catch up with the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart, get his thoughts on Alabama-Tennessee, plus what's coming up this weekend with the homecoming matchup against Mizzou. Then we will hear from Corey Reamer, of course, a former Alabama linebacker. He and I team up for Crimson Tide Rewind each and every Monday night at Baumhauer's in Vestavia Hills. We had a lively conversation last night on all things Alabama football. You'll get a sample of that with Be Kind, Crimson Tide Rewind, and the full episode is available, I promise, on our YouTube page, plus the Alabama Insider podcast. Looking at Crimson Tide football, again, a tough loss against Tennessee this past weekend. Alabama led 7-0 at halftime, but then Tennessee was able to pull out the victory 24-17 the final. 2 losses in the last 3 weeks for the Crimson Tide. With that, Alabama dropping to number 15 in the AP poll. Now this week taking on a Missouri team that's also in the top 25, ranked number 21 in the country. So a top 25 matchup coming up for homecoming at the Capstone this weekend. 2:30 the start time. Our radio coverage will begin at 11:30 at Vector Security Champions Lane. It is homecoming, and we have always enjoyed homecoming here in Tuscaloosa. 20 straight victories for the Crimson Tide during homecoming matchups. Hopefully that becomes 21 against Missouri. Other notes around Crimson Tide athletics. Men's basketball team had a fun time in Birmingham at Boutwell Auditorium this past Friday. Picked up a 98-77 win against Wake Forest. Aiden Holloway looked great for the first time in a Crimson jersey as he led the way, leading 6 players that scored in double figures in that matchup. Soccer team, only one home game is left. That's coming up against the Florida Gators at 6 p.m. on Thursday. We'll have the broadcast on SEC Network Plus for that matchup. And then the volleyball team, they are continuing what's been a long stretch away from Foster Auditorium. They will be at Oklahoma coming up tomorrow at 6 p.m. Of course, the focus on this show, football, and Walt Brock really helps put the focus on football through the Alabama football social media platforms, whether it's interactive podcasts that they've debuted with players like the New Wave with Ryan Williams and Jalen Bachway, the trailers for the ball games, the cinematic recaps, the game day posters, the victory posters. His crew does such a solid job putting everything together for Alabama athletics and Alabama football on social media. So we thought this week would be a good time to catch up with our friend Walt Brock, leading the way for Alabama football creative and production. Roll Tide and welcome back to Bryant-Denny Stadium. We're at the Advantage Center inside our podcast studios. This is Roger Hoover. Now please be joined by the Director of Creative and Production for Alabama football, Walt Brock, as we're going to talk about some of the new content we've seen for Alabama football this season. And first of all, man, Roll Tide, how much have you enjoyed being part of the staff here at Alabama?
Man, Roll Tide, it's been an amazing ride, man. So I started here this past March and hit the ground running. I tell everybody that football days, it's only been 7-8 months, but it feels like it's been a lot longer. But been embraced by the staff, not only within the football complex, but also across the board. So it's been great working with you all and also CTSM and all of our partners at Yale, Alabama as well.
And so when you were thinking about making this move, what were you told by either the coaching staff, people with Alabama athletics about what this role could be?
Yeah, so I knew that from a creative standpoint, right, on the surface level, overseeing like our social engagement and content, around, lead ups for games and recaps and things of that nature. But as I started to kind of dive a little bit deeper, and what made me excited about the position was an opportunity to really highlight Alabama football and our young men in terms of what their interests are on and off the field. Also be able to kind of create some unique series, and then the opportunity to kind of work with different groups across campus. So prior to coming to Bama, outside of being a creative myself, I've had a chance to work at the NCAA office, worked at Cal Berkeley, worked for the Raiders as well in different executive positions. And so from my end, when it comes to creating content, I try to create content with a purpose, knowing that their brands that can be attached to it, but also making sure that we kind of tell stories authentically, so that we're highlighting not only our young men the best way, but also the program as well.
And that's really good, and it seems like the buy-in has certainly been there, not just from the student athletes, but the coaching staff as well.
Absolutely. Coach DeBoer, he gets it. He gets it, right? In this new day and age of football with the portal and NIL, you have to figure out ways, right, to keep the main thing, but at the same time be able to create opportunities for guys to benefit from their NIL, right? And so I think a lot of times people think that this kind of happens automatically just because you play well on the field. That is important, but there also has to be, a cadence. There has to be some strategy around it as well. And so I think with his blessing and also our coaching staff, they've allowed myself and our department to kind of get creative and do some fun things.
Some of those fun things include getting to work with the players directly on a podcast series. Ryan Williams, Jalen Mbakwe with the Next Wave, and their numbers have been incredible. Great content from those guys being filmed in this room. Just how did all of that come about? How they wanted to get involved with this?
Yeah, so the New Wave podcast, man. So excited to work with these young guys. It's funny. So I had a chance to meet Jalen, but I call him Bach. Everyone calls him Bach. I had a chance to meet Bach in the spring as he was kind of, getting acclimated here, through spring ball. And then I met Ryan. I actually had dinner with him and Bob and Courtney Morgan probably 2 weeks before summer camp. And so both the guys were like, hey, man, we want to do a podcast. I said, okay, guys, okay, let's hold off a little bit. Because, again, whenever you have incoming freshmen, you want to make sure that they stay locked in. They're doing everything that they need to do to prepare. It's already a heavy transition. It can be challenging. But as we started to kind of get to know them a little bit more and kind of dig a little bit deeper in terms of their unique friendship. Also, they played their championship game here in Bryant-Denny. That was their last game, and then actually played their first game together here as well. We started thinking you know what, there's something there. But outside of the storylines, yes, they're both from Alabama, outside of Birmingham and also Mobile. But the thought was, man, this could be a really good opportunity to help position them. One, to kind of help them produce a podcast, so they're learning a lot in terms of building our storylines. We create, run the shows every week. We map out different guests. They come in. We have a production schedule, right? So they're kind of learning the process. And then also in terms of being able to monetize it as well, right? And so I think the surface level, yes, we're having great content, great guests. And I think right now we're probably the number 2 player-led podcast in the country, and we've just been rolling probably for a month and some change. But what I'm really excited is about that they're really understanding the process and the business side behind it as well.
And that's really good to see. And they're having a lot of fun with it. They're getting some great conversations. I mean, I can study all day long, and I still won't come close to learning some of the things they know that's going on inside that locker room, and they're bringing that to the podcast.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think that's what, our fans want to see, right? At the end of the day, it's all about, I think whenever you can kind of take off the helmet and remove that, right, we see what happens on the field. That's going to take care of itself. We have some of the best coaches and the best student athletes here. But when you can kind of dive a little bit deeper into their lives and see hey, look, man, these are young men. They're still, growing. They're mature for their age in terms of what they're doing, off the field and on the field. But at the same time, they're doing some positive things, right? There's a lot of other, negative things that could be going on. And so sometimes when people say, hey, look, the podcast is maybe a distraction, I disagree. I think it's really a great positive outlet for them. One, they're also getting some very, tangible skills that they're learning as well through it all.
And that's awesome to see. And again, you're wearing a Lanka hoodie as well for today's show.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen how Jalen and Terry and Arnold will allow that to really grow last year, and it's even grown this year. You got to really enjoy being able to work with those guys, continue building that brand.
Absolutely, man. So I would say it was probably 2 days leading up until the A-Day, and so I had a chance to finally meet Terry in person, and him and Jalen were together. We were in Courtney Morgan's office, and Trip Merritt was in there. And we started kind of diving deeper, from length right across the board. When I found out that it had turned into a multi-million-dollar business, I was like, wait a minute, we have to dive a little bit deeper here. And so I was fortunate enough to work with our team, and we created a kind of a length documentary, a short doc that's still on YouTube. We have over, I want to say, almost near 150,000 views. But it's really a case study, right, of like the power of the script A. You come here, you play hard, and you're able to kind of really have this village of people who can support you to take a business idea and really kind of turn it into a multi-million-dollar business. Now, again, right, a lot of things happened, right, on the field, right, but I feel like with Terrian and Jalen, as they kind of grew into Lank, they were also growing simultaneously on the field, and so it was almost a perfect storm. But it's a great case study for us to kind of show the country, hey, look, this is what we're doing at Bama to help our student athletes, but then also too, to kind of show from a student athlete standpoint, like, hey man, like if you come here, if you have a good idea and you handle your business, you can really, make a name for yourself, on and off the field.
There are a few things as well that our fan base loves in terms of football content. They love a video either the night before the game or the day of the game to get everyone hyped for the ball game. They love like a great cinematic recap of Alabama wins and a game poster as well. Your staff has not only embraced that, but you've improved upon it over the last year. Just how much fun has it been to get to dive into those things?
I really appreciate that, man. We have a great staff, man. Shout out to Michael Kulik and Dante Oliver, and then also Ryan Adams and Preston on our team. And so we pride ourselves in really, doing a great job in terms of getting our fans excited, but also our guys leading up to the games. We've had a benefit of engaging with our alumni as well, right? So everyone from, Najee Harris to D Square, to who else, man? Mark Ingram, right? So kind of runs a gamut of guys that are pouring back into the program and kind of helping us with our Friday night trailers. So we'll write out the kind of the VO kind of throughout the week. We get with them, they record it, we send it out to them. So it's been a great opportunity to kind of re-engage. And so when we see a lot of comments from our fans, they're like, "Oh man, it's great to hear from Najee, or it's great to hear from Mark." It kind of really, again, it serves two purposes, right? One, to get everyone excited about the game, but also show that our guys are still engaged as well. So it's been fun doing that. And then the creativity around our game day kind of lead up posters, and then also our win posters. It's been fun, man. They really make it about us in terms of like as we kind of go on this journey throughout the season. But from a creative group, we love kind of rolling up our sleeves and doing some unique things.
Yeah, and especially with the cinematic recap as well. I mean, how many people are involved in making sure that looks as good as it can be? I think people still are watching the Georgia one on loop.
Oh man, Mike. So Mike on our team, an amazing cinematographer and also editor. He takes the lead with it, but we have to give kudos to our partners at Crimson Tide Productions and also CTSM as well. So we pull from a lot of different feeds. We also pull from ESPN and ABC. So thank you to them as well for a lot of the commentary and things we're able to pull in. But in terms of like the leadership on making that happen, Mike has done an amazing job. I don't want to praise him too much, man, because now people are gonna start calling. But no, he's done a great job of kind of leading that on our team.
That's really cool to see. And then your office is going to be busy, of course, as everything goes along the rest of the season, but also with recruiting, an early signing day that's coming up, the signing day in February as well. I know you don't have everything yet, but anything special kind of planned, obviously, to showcase the recruits that are coming here to Alabama?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, we've had a couple calls over the last week or so to kind of start mapping some things out. We want to make a splash and also welcome our guys. But also show them that, again, being here at Tuscaloosa, it's the beginning of their journey, but we're going to start it off, with a bang as well. So we have a few things that we'll do. Can't share a lot right now, but we'll tie in, kind of getting their NIL kind of kicked off, fairly early. Also doing a couple of segments around our New Wave podcast as well. So that, kind of Ryan and Bach can kind of introduce the guys and do some unique things, with that. So stay tuned.
That's really cool to see. Again, it's a new age in college football and athletics, so with everything changing a little bit, but I think your office continues to show there can be some change with NIL getting involved in all this, but still Alabama fans are now having better access to these players and these coaches than they've ever had before. Yeah,
I think our goal is to really create like an in-house agency, right? At the end of the day, because we sit, within Bama football, it allows us to build unique relationships with our head coach and also the players, so we kind of know exactly kind of what moves them. But then we're able to be great partners, like I mentioned before, with CTSM, with you all, with Alabama as well, So I really feel like we're, I'll say, I guess in basketball terms, like a point guard, right? Where we're able to kind of like see the opportunities, kind of create them, and then, whether it's a great, a pass or assist with other groups to help us, generate, revenue for our podcasts, our different content opportunities, and we kind of see the gaps there. So yes, in this new NIL world, I feel like we're taking the right strides, and I'm grateful for the Bama fan base to kind of embrace us as well, because I know some of it has been new, but I think it's been well received for the most part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of excitement. Walt, Brock, thank you for all the time you've given us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Best of luck. We're going to be keeping our fingers glued to the screen, looking at Alabama football to see what's next from you and your crew. But thank you again. Roll Tide.
Thank you so much. Roll Tide, Roger.
Experience racing like never before. From the sandy beaches of Daytona to the high banks of one of the most exciting super speedways on the NASCAR circuit. Don't miss out as NASCAR kicks off the 2025 season with the Daytona 500 on February 16th, 2025. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Getting ready for this Wednesday, we will have a new edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show at 6 p.m. from Baumhauer's in Tuscaloosa. And on the call for that, plus all of our football and men's basketball network, the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart. He joins us to give us thoughts on Alabama against Tennessee and what's coming up during a very busy week here in Tuscaloosa. Chris, it's time to talk about, of course, the third Saturday in October, what we saw on Saturday in Knoxville, but in a lot of ways look forward to what's coming up later this week with the Missouri Tigers in town. But Roll Tide, good morning. How's everything going for you?
Yeah, Roll Tide, good morning. It's lousy, as you would expect, after a tough loss to an arch rival. But you're right. There is no choice other than to look ahead. You have to look back at what went wrong. 15 penalties. I'm trying to remember. I think that's at least 30, maybe 33 in the last two meetings up in Knoxville, last two trips to Knoxville for Alabama football. A lot of self-inflicted damage in that ball game. I felt good at halftime. It felt good, but not great. You're up 7-0, but it should have been more than that. And Tennessee has been rough in the first half all year. They probably felt pretty good that they were only down 7-0 at that time. They made a great play that set up their first score. I mean, a fantastic throw, a 3rd and long that put them inside the 5, and a heck of an effort. And then a couple of pretty good plays that put them ahead. But Alabama's got to be better. Got things improved defensively, but too many mistakes offensively. Jalen was off for whatever reason, was not the guy that we have seen for the majority of the last 12 months. It's unfortunate. Couldn't get things going, and some missed opportunities that really, really hurt you. If you want to go encouragement, I will absolutely go with the defense, though, because they did improve. Tennessee missed some chances on their own as well that were wide open that thankfully they didn't convert earlier in the game. So you're kind of fortunate in that regard. But you're sitting here now in a spot where the back is firmly against the wall as far as what your hopes and aspirations are for the postseason. There is no wiggle room. There's no room for error. I think we now know, and I know I'm hitting a lot of stuff here, but I think it's clear that when at your best, this team can play with anybody. Georgia went from being, they're dead, they're not Georgia anymore, to, well, they're number 2 in the country. And the guy or the team that's ahead of them had to win a great ball game at home that if they had played on the road probably would have lost. That's just how close that game with Ohio State was. So look, it's not about anybody else though right now. It's not about what you've done, pro or con. It's about going back to work, getting in the training room to get yourself as healthy as possible, control as much of that as you can control. It's about getting back to the practice field and getting better. And look, candidly, I think that may be part of the issue. I'm not sure that this group is healthy enough to do what's necessary Monday through Friday to get better so that they can be who they need to be on Saturday. And you got to go with your best. But I think it's a very beaten up, battered team. Yes, certainly emotionally with 2 losses now, but physically, I think they are as well. Nobody's going to have sympathy for you. That's not an excuse. It's a reality. Everybody's dealing with it at some level. But for this team with so many new faces, and here's the deal: everybody's new in reality for Alabama's football team, because even the guys that are back from last year or have been in the system from day one, like a Malachi Moore, they all this year have had to learn something new because it's a new coaching staff, a new system. So it's brand new for everybody. So to expect the exact same results, I think would be foolish on all of our parts. And I'm probably guilty of it as much as anybody else, because you get programmed after 16 of the last 17 seasons where, heck, you're just in the mix every single year. But it took change, a transition. When Coach Saban first came in, Kalen DeBoer's history is of, okay, the first year may not be what you want it to be, but after that, everybody else better look out. And I don't see any reason to think going forward that we're going to be in the same boat. But you got to get through this storm, which is this season. And that's all anybody cares about right now, Missouri, and finding a way to be good enough to beat them on Saturday.
And for the Crimson Tide, last year is a little bit different with only the 4-team playoff. You knew the margin for error was pretty much shot once Alabama
Sure.
lost to Texas week 2, but then they respond to go undefeated in the SEC, win the SEC championship game against Georgia. Now we're at a similar spot for this team in a 12-team playoff. 2 losses already, 2 in the last 3 weeks, but 1 week at a time, this group is still capable of something special.
No doubt. I mean, you got a ranked team in Missouri. Granted, they've dropped a couple that weren't expecting to and have slid, outside the top 20, but they're still in the top 25. So there's an opportunity to get fixed against somebody who's definitely credible. You're going to Baton Rouge. You're going to Norman, Oklahoma. And I know what happened last weekend or this past weekend, but it's still OU. And it's a game that by the time you play it, it's going to be Alabama and Oklahoma, and that, to anybody that knows any history of college football at all, is going to have a special sound, and it'll have a lot of eyeballs on it, regardless of what the records are when we go into that game. And the same thing for the Iron Bowl. So there are games out there that are still games that can definitely help you, and LSU in that mix. And if I didn't mention it, I don't know why I didn't, but they are obviously a team that's in a great spot right now, and you're playing them in Tiger Stadium. And Alabama's history there's pretty good more often than not. So hopefully they're going to find a way to get this thing done, turned around. But again, that stuff that I just ran through is secondary. It's truly about practice today, practice tomorrow, and the day after that. And then let's go play on homecoming and get things done on Saturday against Mizzou in front of a national television audience once again.
Chris, you're always busy during the week and around Alabama football games, but you just mentioned homecoming. How special is it for you to be a part of the festivities that make this a truly special weekend, something we don't really see any other weekend in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, it is. We got I got double booked initially, so the pep rally is in much better hands with Tony Giles handling that, and then we honor our Crimson Tide Foundation folks on Friday night as well, and I'll be involved with that. But it is a special weekend. I've heard from a lot of people that are great names as alums and also former coaches. They're going to be back in town for various sports, and so you got all of that taking place, and Sean Alexander coming back as the Grand Marshal, and I don't know if Sean's got a carry per drive left in him, but I'd like to find out. I know no eligibility left, but I still wouldn't mind handing it to 37 and taking my chances with it. He was so good and such a great representative for the university during his time in the NFL and beyond. So it'll be great to have him back on campus, and a lot surrounding that. And frankly, I think we probably need that as fans. We need some We need some distraction to help us not forget what happened, but just go, okay, there's some other stuff going on. Win or had they won or lost this past weekend, it wasn't going to matter. The team was going to have to be focused on what happens inside the building, and there's nothing more irrelevant within a football building than a college homecoming. And I don't say that to demean homecoming, but we know what it was like when we were in high school. I mean, homecoming week was a big deal, whatever, even if you didn't have football in your school like mine. We were the first graduating class. So homecoming was kind of weird, but it's still, everybody's thinking about it, talking about when you're in high school. Well, in college, it's another weekend. It's not the same thing. So that distraction, for lack of a better term, really isn't there, but it's something for the fans. And we need a distraction right now. We need something else to be excited about, look towards right now, but also very much looking forward to the game against a dangerous Missouri team that, much like Alabama, don't forget, the last time we were number 1, Missouri was number 7, and they were undefeated as well. So 2 teams that are trying to get it back steered the right direction, and hopefully Alabama's going to be able to get that done in that prime kick, not prime time as far as television window, but it is still a very much a prime slot that'll take place on Saturday afternoon.
We look forward to it, Chris. Best of luck with everything that's coming up this week, including Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show on Wednesday. We look forward to seeing you at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Roll Tide. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Roll Tide.
I'm Bray Hubbard. You're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Should be a great crowd at Baumhauer's on Wednesday for Hey Coach. We saw a huge crowd at Baumhauer's in Vestavia Hills last night. They were always lively, having a lot of fun. They didn't bring their penalty flags this time, so that's okay. But Corey Reamer and I enjoyed another edition of Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. Full episode you can listen to on the Alabama Insider podcast or watch the video replay here on our CTSN YouTube page. But we wanted to give you a sample of what we talked about last night as we try to make sense of the Tennessee loss and look forward to what's coming up for Alabama against Missouri. Here is our latest edition of Be Kind, Crimson Tide Rewind. Corey, tonight is the night when Alabama starts to bounce back with Crimson Tide Rewind.
Yeah, I absolutely hope so. It's the last 3 weeks have been tough ones for being an Alabama fan. It's you lose to Vanderbilt, you sneak one out with South Carolina, then you go to Knoxville, and it's just not the performance that we wanted to see. And I think there's some, there are some good things you take away from it, but just couldn't get the job done. And Tennessee gave us all the opportunities in the world to go win that football game, and we just could not capitalize. And probably, on the offensive side of the ball, one of the worst performances we've seen this year in terms of execution, going out there and putting points on the board. And defense really stood up in the first half, getting 3 turnovers, and you just can't do anything with it. And unfortunately for us, it was just a lack of execution. There's a lot of, I don't know, this is, maybe we're, after watching, 6-7 weeks of college football, maybe this is the part of college football now that is also coming along with the NIL and transfer portal of it looking more like an NFL type of situation where you're going to have teams that have, 1, 2, 3 losses that are going to be making these playoffs. And just because there's so much parity across rosters, there's, we've got talent on this team, maybe not as much as we've had in the past or whatever it is. You're just not going out there and executing the way that we're, accustomed to doing from these Alabama teams. It just, it was frustrating to watch. It seems like there was kind of like that South Carolina, the first half. Going into halftime, you got a 7-0 lead, but it just felt like it could have been more. There was opportunities there for us to put points on the board, and then the defense held them to a shutout, and then all of a sudden you get second half, a completely different story. Tennessee outscores us 24-10, and could not get a stop at the very end, and then we turn the ball over with the interception right at the very end when we did have a chance right there in the end of the fourth quarter. And here we are, we've got 2 losses, and something that we haven't had happen at this part of the year for a long time. I think it was 2007 when Coach Saban first got there. It's been a long time since we've had to deal with this, and this is a new era of football. There's still, we've got a 12-team playoff here, so I think that we still control our own destiny. We beat Georgia, and looked good doing it. Georgia turns around and goes out and beats Texas this past weekend and looks dominant in their efforts against them. And it's like being the number one team in the country is a curse. It's like nobody's held it this year for more than 2 weeks. It just seems like there's a lot of really good teams out there, or everybody's just got talent spread out a lot more. And it's just a weird feeling, man.
Yeah, and even the two teams that lead the SEC right now, LSU, Texas A&M, one of them will have a loss this week because they play each other, but those are two fan bases that started the year as frustrated as can be with non-conference losses.
Yeah.
So it's affected everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's you probably go back and you look at the top 25 of the preseason top 25 where everybody thought teams would land. Hell, you got Vandy in the top 25. Nobody was expecting that, and you've got Arkansas, who beat this Tennessee team, and this Arkansas team had looked good all season. They beat Tennessee. It's amazing how I don't want to call it complacency for some teams, but it seems like it's really difficult to get some of these college football teams to really focus on being executing at a high level week in and week out. And I think that's probably been the story for the last few years, probably for the last 4 years, really, since there's an added distraction that you've got for these players now that is just outside of going and being the best that you possibly can be and executing at a high level and focusing on the things you're supposed to focus on. There's other things that are, somewhat of a distraction. I think we all know what that is, and we're seeing the quality of the play being affected by it. I think the biggest thing for us right now is we've got 2 losses. We talked about it last week. Whoever was the loser of this game is going to end up with 2 losses, and then the road gets a lot tougher. The margin of error at this point is 0 for Alabama. You look at the remaining games that we have. You got Oklahoma, LSU, Missouri, and Auburn. Those are 4 tough teams, and 2 of them that are ranked. A 10-2 team that has beat Georgia, I think, has a really good chance of still making the playoff if you can win these last 4 games. You slip up and lose one of these remaining 4 games, even if it's LSU, who's currently number 8 in the country. I think there's a chance, but I think it's going to be really tough. Looking around and seeing what else is out there, these teams that are still that have better records and in having 3 losses, even though it is a 12-team playoff, I think that one's going to be really tough. But they control their own destiny, and that's the main thing you want. You go out there and you do what you're supposed to do. You win these last games. You finish the season from here on out without losing one. I think you got a real chance of being in the playoffs. So we got to do what we're supposed to do. Go out there and focus on us. We've got still a lot to clean up from this past Saturday. Some, shooting ourselves in the foot, some errors that we've created for ourselves. But I still think there is a lot to play for. I think Atlanta is probably going to be a lot tougher at this point. There's a decent amount of SEC teams that have better records. A lot of, like you said, they're going to play each other, and there's no telling what's going to happen. We've seen some chaos through 6 or 7 weeks already this season. You never know how things are going to shake out, but I think that one's going to be a little bit tougher. But we'll see. We got a tough one this coming Saturday against Missouri, who has looked good early in the season. Seems like they got a quarterback injury situation. Comes back and wins that Auburn game for them this past weekend. But this is a good quality team, and you better come ready to play.
Better come ready to play. And again, that's the only thing this football team could focus on.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot sit there and try to look down the road. You've got to center in and focus your entire locker room. You're starting yesterday, Sunday, meetings. You've got to worry about what you can control and what is going on in this locker room to figure out what these mistakes are that we're making that are really costing us a lot of these games, because there's just too many of them, whether it be penalties or turnovers or offense is playing good on, this week, defense is not. Defense is playing good this week, offense is not. How do we find a way to gel together as a team? And when you have opportunities to win football games or to continue to, step on their necks, when you got opportunities, you got to take them. You've got to have, and Coach DeBoer mentioned it on Saturday, it's like, where is that dog mentality of let's go finish these guys off. Let's go make them feel that they played Alabama. And right now we're just not playing that style of football, and you're allowing teams to stick around and be in ball games that we could have easily put them out of earlier on, where they would have given up a lot of, earlier in the game. And you just can't let these are good teams that we're playing. You can't let them hang around and just slowly find their way back into a football game because they're good enough to do it, and we saw it on Saturday.
It's homecoming. It's going to be very busy around the Alabama campus, and we certainly hope we can celebrate a Crimson Tide victory on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to find a way to get ready this 2:30 kickoff against a good team. We got Luther Burton, one of the best wide receivers in the country, coming in town, and Brady Cook, we saw what he did. He supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not, if this was just the headlines or if this is just Missouri playing into the narrative of him leaving and going to the hospital and having to come back and finishing up that Auburn game. Supposedly that's what happened. But this is a team that is ready to play. I mean, they had that one loss to Texas A&M earlier in the season and found a way to win that ball game last week. I do think that they're probably just like everybody else, not where they expected to be at this point in the year, but they only have the one loss, and they're going to be ready to go in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. It's going to be a tough battle. It's because I think what everybody realizes now is that we've got these 2 losses and kind of gives them this leg of confidence to come in and play, and you got your opportunity to go beat Alabama. Our players better be ready, and hopefully get healed up a little bit from last week.
Getting off to a good start and important. How about just making adjustments at halftime and making sure Alabama finishes this game the right way? How key is that?
I mean, that's been critical. You saw this past week, defense creates 3 turnovers, holds Tennessee's offense to 0 points, and then all of a sudden you're giving up 24 in the back half. And, the second half defense, even in the offensive standpoint, when you're trying to finish ball games, you've also got to make adjustments. You had 2 3-and-outs, a turnover on downs, an interception. Defense has got to figure out how to be ready to come out and play, ready to play on the second half, because so far it's been, we get a little bit of lead. I don't know if we can build a large enough lead in that first half to be able to hold on, which is what happened in that Georgia game. If we hadn't scored as many points as we did in that first half against Georgia, who knows if we hold on to win that ball game. And the last few weeks we've been fortunate. Hopefully we get some things turned around here on Saturday.
Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Saturday will be busy in Tuscaloosa, and we are going to be having a fun time at Vector Security Champions Lane. Of course, we'll have our radio broadcast at 11:30, but before that, we'll have some music from our friend Smith Distillery, and then after our pregame show is done, hello, Easton Corbin. He'll be hitting the stage at the Bud Light Backyard, having a great concert to get you ready for Alabama against Missouri as part of our concert series that we've had this year at Champions Lane. Loved having Lauren Elena in town for the Georgia game a few weeks ago, and now country music superstar Easton Corbin will be here coming up on Saturday at Vector Security Champions Lane, where there is something special you have got to check out. We've been talking about these special Alabama Yeti Cups all throughout the season. I know a few weeks ago the Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium logo was unveiled, and fans were able to get that on a vintage Yeti Cup. Well, now we have one that is not vintage. It is literally as fresh as can be, looking at 2 Alabama football players that are making a huge impact for the Crimson Tide this year. 4 + 2 = 6. We heard that from Ryan Williams after he had 2 touchdowns against Western Kentucky, and then we certainly noticed it against the Georgia Bulldogs. If that picture looks familiar, that is taken literally, that image, from his game-winning touchdown against Georgia earlier this season. The 4 + 2 = 6 logo, I mean, a tremendous look on the Yeti Cup, and again, some proceeds are benefiting our student athletes with that as well, Ryan Williams and Jalen Milrose. So you'll have a chance to purchase this coming up at Champions Lane and right here. We're going to be on stage here at the Bud Light Backyard, but this is the place to buy these 4 + 2 = 6 Yeti Cups. Again, only while supplies last, and based on how fast the Saban Field Yetis went, you want to make sure you purchase these as soon as you can. I imagine there probably will be a line, so make sure you get there early, starting at 10:30 for those 4 + 2 = 6. Just a great keepsake. Hey, the holidays are just around the corner. My wife has already sent her Christmas list in, so make sure you are staying ahead of the sticks when it comes to Christmas by getting a vintage Yeti Cup like this, and one with the current logo as well. 4 + 2 = 6. That's part of what's coming up at Vector Security Champions Lane on Saturday. Friends, check out Game Day Done Right, because there's one thing we can really all agree on. No one wants to be the last one left at a tailgate at the end of the game, having to do all the cleanup, all the breakdown while their friends are out celebrating. If you've been in this situation before, you know the true value in what the team at Game Day Done Right provides. They handle the entire process for you, from setup to breakdown. Stellar customer service on game days to make sure your group is taken care of from start to finish. All you have to do is visit GameDayDoneRight.com, reserve your tailgate package, and let their team take it from there. Exciting week here in Tuscaloosa and a lot coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Let's take a look at our upcoming schedule. Well, as we mentioned, tomorrow we will have another edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show, also featuring a women's basketball head coach, Christy Curry. Chris Stewart will host that starting at 6 o'clock from Baumhower's here in Tuscaloosa. And then we will be back with another edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, on Thursday at 2 o'clock, a full preview of Alabama against Missouri in football. Tide TV this week will hit our TV affiliates and RolledTide.com coming up on Friday. And then Saturday, our game day coverage will start at 11:30 a.m. Make sure you join us outside Saban Field at Vector Security Champions Lane starting at 11:30 for our pregame coverage and then the kickoff at 2:30. Don't forget, you can listen on the full radio network, the Varsity Network app, and then watch the Yay Alabama booth cam. We will be live and rolling. You'll see the sun hitting our faces, especially in the early quarters, coming up on Saturday at home in Tuscaloosa. Chris Stewart and Kalen DeBoer will talk about the ball game on the Kalen DeBoer TV show on Sunday. Then before you know it, we'll have another edition of Crimson Tide Rewind next Monday at Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms at UA_CTSN for the very latest. A lot of interview clips, Yay Alabama booth cam highlights, all found right there. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss anything from the Crimson Tide Sports Network. It's going to wrap up a very busy Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to Alabama football's Walt Brock for joining us at the top of the show. We will have a conversation with Alabama offensive lineman Wilkin Formby coming up on our Thursday edition, but thank you to Walt Brock for his time. Chris Stewart for giving us a preview of Hey Coach and plus everything coming up on Saturday, and then Corey Reamer as well with last night's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind. Thank you to our video producer, Ethan Caravan. He put the entire show together, and thanks to all of you for watching. This is Roger Hoover with you from Tuscaloosa. Thank you again for being a part of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We'll see you on Thursday, everyone. Roll Tide.